Premium brands have been counting on one thing: that you would never actually check what's inside the packaging you're paying triple for. With grocery prices still squeezing every household budget, that bet is starting to fall apart, and Lidl UK is the reason why. 15 items sitting on Lidl's shelves right now aren't just holding their own against the biggest names in British retail. They're beating them in blind taste tests, in independent lab comparisons, and in the kind of ingredient breakdowns that make premium pricing look less like quality and more like theatre. From crisps and cheese all the way to nappies, the pattern repeats itself again and again, and it gets harder to ignore with every item. This isn't a one-off fluke either. Lidl has spent years quietly building own brand ranges that sit alongside the big names on nearly every shelf in the store. And the more these ranges get tested head-to-head, the harder it becomes to justify paying double, triple, or in one case on this list, 50 times the price for something that performs almost identically once the branding is stripped away. Stay until the end, because the very last one is the comparison that had parents doing the maths mid-shop and quietly switching trolleys for good. Once you see the numbers, you won't unsee them. First, number 15, Snacktastic Crisps going up against Walker's. Walker's built its dominance on decades of brand recognition and a shelf so crowded with variants that nobody ever stops to question whether the crunch justifies the cost. Lidl's Snacktastic range delivers the same crunch, the same seasoning intensity, a near-identical fat content per bag, and blind taste tests run by food bloggers have consistently found tasters unable to reliably pick out which bag was the budget option. For a snack that ends up in the cupboard on a weekly basis, that's not a small win. It's a habit-forming one, and it adds up fast across a family shop. Multi-pack pricing only widens the gap further, which is exactly the kind of detail that never makes it into a big brand's advertising. Next up, at number 14, Alesto nuts and dried fruit versus the premium nut brands. Premium nut brands have spent years selling packaging and the idea of a curated selection, not necessarily a meaningfully different product once you're actually eating it. Alesto's almonds, cashews and dried fruit are sourced from many of the same major supply regions as the pricier names sitting beside them on the shelf, and independent freshness and taste comparisons have found little meaningful difference in oil content, crunch or sweetness. The extra pounds spent on the premium bag are mostly buying a logo, not a superior nut. Roasting and salting processes are also broadly standardized across the industry, so the idea that a pricier bag has somehow been treated with more care rarely holds up once you look at how these products are actually produced at scale. For anyone snacking regularly or baking with nuts and dried fruit through the year, the savings on Alesto alone can outpace what most households spend on treats over a month. At number 13, formal laundry detergent versus Ariel. Ariel has spent decades building the assumption that a bigger, more familiar brand name automatically means a better wash, a belief that's cheaper to hold onto than to actually test. Independent consumer testing, including comparisons run by Which, has repeatedly placed Formal in the same performance bracket as the big household names on stain removal and freshness, at a fraction of the cost per wash. For a product used multiple times a week, every week, that's a saving that compounds quietly in the background of a household budget most people never bother to check. Across a year of laundry for an average family, the gap between Formal and the branded alternatives can quietly cover the cost of several weekly food shops. And it's not just detergent. The wider Formal range has picked up similar results in side-by-side testing, which suggests the pattern isn't limited to a single lucky product. Before we continue, if this list is already making you question every premium brand in your basket, hit that like button right now. Every item on this list represents a purchase decision the evidence has already made for you. And stick around, because later on we get to a skincare cream that's reportedly 50 times cheaper than the brands it's being compared against, and a baby product comparison that could quietly save new parents hundreds of pounds a year. 3 items in, and the pattern is already obvious. Crisps, nuts, laundry detergent, all matched against household names people buy without a second thought. And we've barely started. Number 12 on the list, Milbona Continental Cheese Selection versus Deli Counter Cheeses. Deli Counter and specialty cheese brands build their reputations on the suggestion of artisan craft, and a price tag that assumes nobody will check whether that craft actually shows up on the pallet. Milbona's Brie, Camembert, and matured continental wedges have performed well in blind cheeseboard comparisons against significantly pricier deli counter equivalents, with tasters frequently unable to identify which one was the budget option. Picture a cheeseboard laid out for guests, waxy rind, a proper ooze at room temperature, that faint mushroomy tang on the finish. And there's very little in that description that separates Milbona from a genuine deli counter selection. A full cheeseboard for a dinner party becomes achievable without the deli markup, and repeat guests rarely clock the difference until someone points at the price on the receipt. Even the ripening process, which is usually the first thing premium cheesemongers point to as their advantage, follows the same basic timeline in Milbona's continental range, and that's precisely why the blind tests keep landing the way they do. 11 on the list: Freshona frozen vegetables versus Bird's Eye. Bird's Eye built an entire brand identity around frozen vegetables, on the assumption that a company dedicated solely to frozen veg would obviously outperform a discount grocer's own range. The evidence doesn't really support that assumption. Freshona's peas, sweet corn, and mixed vegetables are flash frozen at peak harvest ripeness, a standardized agricultural process that doesn't produce meaningfully better outcomes just because there's a familiar logo on the bag. In fact, fresh vegetables sitting in a supermarket aisle for several days can lose more nutritional value through oxidation than a bag frozen within hours of harvest, which quietly undercuts the entire fresh is best assumption premium ranges lean on. Vitamin C retention and fiber content in Freshona's range come down to harvest timing and freeze speed, not brand loyalty. The bag looks different. A lot of what's inside it isn't, and for a staple that ends up on the plate several nights a week, that's a difference worth knowing before you reach for the more expensive logo out of habit. Independent nutritional panels comparing peas and sweet corn across supermarket-owned brands have found the gaps between them are usually smaller than the gap between fresh and frozen in the first place, which rather undercuts the entire premise premium ranges are selling. At number 10, deluxe hand-cooked crisps versus kettle chips. Kettle chips built a premium snacking reputation on thicker cut slices and the language of small batch artisan cooking. Lidl's deluxe hand-cooked range uses the same thick-cut style and slow cook method, and blind taste tests comparing flavors like sea salt, mature cheddar and red onion, and smoky barbecue have consistently found the deluxe range scoring equal to or higher than kettle on crunch and flavor intensity. For roughly half the price, that's a difficult gap to explain away with packaging alone. Quick reset before we carry on. 5 items in, and not one premium brand on this list has actually won a blind comparison outright. Crisps, nuts, laundry detergent, cheese, frozen veg, crisps again, matched or beaten every single time. That's not luck. That's a pattern, and if you're only watching for one thing on this list, watch how often premium turns out to just mean a bigger marketing budget. Number 9, Crownfield granola versus Jordan's. Jordan's built its breakfast positioning on rustic packaging, countryside imagery, and the quiet implication that its oats and clusters are meaningfully more wholesome than anything on a discount shelf. Crownfield's granola range delivers comparable whole grain oat content, comparable nut and fruit inclusion, and near identical nutritional panels per 100 grams to the branded alternative sitting right beside it. Sugar content per serving lines up closely too, which matters more than the marketing suggests. A lot of premium granola brands quietly rely on dried fruit and honey coatings to push sugar levels higher than shoppers assume from the rustic packaging. Blind taste tests comparing clusters, crunch, and sweetness levels have consistently found no clear winner, which means the extra spend on Jordan's is buying packaging and a countryside photograph, not a materially different bowl of breakfast. For a household getting through a box a week, that photograph is an expensive thing to keep paying for. Quick one before we continue. I've spent years standing in supermarket aisles so you don't have to, and the supermarket method distills all of it into one simple guide you can use on every shopping trip. Scan the QR code on your screen, grab your copy, and let's get back to number 8, because this next one might be the boldest comparison on the entire list. Number 8. Vermondo plant-based range versus Beyond Meat and Alpro. Beyond Meat and Alpro built their positions as early pioneers in plant-based food, a reputation that's still being cashed in at the till years after the novelty wore off. Vermondo's plant-based burgers, mince, and dairy alternatives deliver comparable protein content and texture, and taste tests run by food bloggers have consistently found the differences in bite and juiciness marginal at best. For households eating plant-based multiple times a week, that gap adds up quickly, and it's a gap that exists almost entirely in branding, not in what actually lands on the plate. Even the plant milks hold their own against the market leaders in frothing tests for tea and coffee, which is often the deciding factor for people who switch to plant-based in the first place. At number 7, Deluxe Extra Virgin Olive Oil versus Filippo Berio. Filippo Berio built its shelf presence on Italian heritage branding and decades of supermarket familiarity, commercially effective and not automatically a marker of superior oil in the bottle. Lidl's Deluxe range delivers cold-pressed, often organic certified oil from named producing regions, and independent tasting panels comparing it against long-established branded oils have produced results the specialty olive oil community finds genuinely hard to swallow. The price gap doesn't reflect a matching quality gap. Oleocanthal content, the compound behind that peppery, throat-tingling, finish-quality extra virgin olive oil produces, has been measured in Deluxe at levels that go toe-to-toe with oils costing 2 to 3 times as much. Quick reset, because this is where the list stops being about spare change. 9 items deep, and every single premium brand has been matched or beaten. Crisps, nuts, laundry, cheese, veg. Crisps again, granola, plant-based, olive oil. 4 items left, and it's only going to get more uncomfortable for the brands people are the most loyal to. While we're pausing, if you haven't already, hit subscribe, because we're about to get into the 4 comparisons people tend to defend the hardest. And one of them involves a jar of cream sitting on a shelf next to something that costs 50 times as much. Number 6. Milbona Salted Butter versus Kerrygold. Kerrygold built its premium butter reputation on Irish grass-fed dairy provenance, and the nutritional story that grass-fed butter's superior conjugated linoleic acid and omega-3 profile justifies the price premium it commands. Milbona's butter has been quietly and consistently holding its own against Kerrygold in blind taste assessments run by food bloggers and consumer testing communities. The flavour on bread, the melt on hot toast, and the performance in baking applications have produced results former culinary professionals describe as leaving almost no rational basis for the Kerrygold premium, especially once you compare like for weight rather than pack price. Milbona's sourcing also draws on grazing herds rather than intensive indoor systems, which chips away at the idea that grass-fed richness is something only one brand on the shelf can claim. At number 5, Deluxe free-range eggs versus Clarence Court. Clarence Court built a premium position on heritage breeds and distinctive shell colours, alongside genuinely appealing packaging and branding around traceability. Lidl's Deluxe free-range eggs meet the same core UK free-range welfare standards: outdoor access, stocking density limits, and Lion Mark or equivalent quality assurance as the eggs sitting in the premium chiller section right next to them. Under UK free-range regulations, hens need a set minimum of outdoor space per bird and daytime access to that space for most of their lives, requirements that apply identically whether the eggs end up in a heritage-branded box or an own label one. Blind taste and texture comparisons of fried and boiled eggs have found the differences negligible, with yolk colour and richness driven mostly by feed rather than brand. That's a lot of households paying extra month after month for a shell colour. Even the feed used across most UK free-range flocks is remarkably similar between own brand and heritage suppliers, which is a big part of why the taste tests keep coming back so close. Number 4. Deluxe Belgian Chocolate versus Lindt Excellence. Lindt built a mass premium chocolate empire on a simple bet that consumers equate price with quality in confectionery. That bet collapses the moment someone actually tries Lidl's Deluxe range. Deluxe's chocolate line delivers European production standards, generous cacao percentages, and the complex flavour profiles that genuine cacao sourcing produces, in ways mass production models quietly optimise away in favour of consistency and margin. Food writers who have run blind comparisons between Deluxe and Lindt Excellence at equivalent cacao percentages describe the Deluxe bars as performing comparably or preferably at a fraction of the price. And it's not just about taste. The flavanol compounds in high cacao dark chocolate, linked to cardiovascular benefits and better blood vessel flexibility, show up in comparable concentrations here too. Conching time, the slow process that actually develops flavour rather than just melting sugar into fat, is the detail most shoppers never think to ask about, and it's precisely where Deluxe's European producers reportedly don't cut the corner that larger mass market lines sometimes do. At number 3, Cien Q10 Anti-Wrinkle Cream versus Nivea and Olay. Nivea and Olay built accessible premium skincare reputations on decades of brand recognition and genuinely researched actives like Q10 coenzyme. The formulations are real and the research behind ingredients like Q10 is legitimate. What those brands can't fully justify is the price gap with Lidl's Cien range once the comparison happens at the formulation level. Cien's Q10 lines contain comparable active ingredient concentrations, Q10, hyaluronic acid, and vitamin E among them, positioned high up the ingredients list rather than diluted down to a token amount near the bottom, which is often where budget skincare actually falls short and where Cien reportedly doesn't. Beauty journalists and consumer titles running side-by-side ingredient and performance comparisons have repeatedly landed on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Cien performs remarkably close to Nivea and Olay's anti-aging ranges for a fraction of the shelf price. Some comparisons have put the price difference at 50 times over for near identical performance. The premium here is mostly buying a name on a jar, quick reset, because this is exactly the point where people tend to switch off the wrong products. Crisps, nuts, laundry, cheese, veg, crisps again, granola, plant-based, oil, butter, eggs, chocolate, skincare, 12 items in, and every single one of those habits has just been shown to cost more than it needs to. For a result, you can't actually tell apart blind. 2 items left, and the biggest one is still coming. Next up at number 2, Deluxe Smoked Scottish Salmon versus M&S and Lochmuir. M&S built its Lochmuir smoked salmon range on the promise of premium Scottish provenance, and a proprietary sourcing story shoppers have no real way to verify at the fishmonger counter. Lidl's Deluxe Smoked Salmon is sourced from Scottish waters, traditionally oak smoked, and has repeatedly placed at or near the top of blind supermarket smoked salmon taste tests run by national newspapers and consumer magazines, outscoring M&S's Lochmuir range on texture, smokiness and saltiness balance in several published rounds. The testing methodology matters here too. Panels typically taste unlabeled slices side by side, scoring on smokiness, oiliness and saltiness without knowing which pack cost twice as much, exactly the kind of test premium brands rarely volunteer for. For something bought as an occasional treat or a Christmas morning staple, that's a difficult result to explain away. Even the curing process, traditionally seen as the mark of a genuinely premium smoked fish, follows comparable methods here, which goes a long way toward explaining why so many blind panels struggle to separate the two. And finally, the one we teased at the very start. Number 1, Lupulou nappies versus Pampers. Pampers built one of the most trusted names in baby care on decades of brand loyalty passed down from parent to parent, alongside genuinely strong absorbency engineering. The product quality is real and the trust is earned. What Pampers can't justify is the price gap with Lidl's Lupulou nappy range once you look at it honestly. Lupulou has picked up genuine industry recognition too, including awards from Loved by Parents and Mother and Baby, and has repeatedly performed well in independent nappy testing run by consumer groups like Which, matching Pampers on leak protection, overnight absorbency, and skin friendliness for sensitive newborn skin, at a significantly lower price per nappy. Run the maths over a few years of nappies, multiple packs a week, and the gap between choosing Lupulou and choosing Pampers adds up to hundreds of pounds by the time a single child is out of nappies. Multiply that across roughly 2.5 years of nappy changes, day and night, newborn size right through to potty training, and it stops being a rounding error on the weekly shop and starts being a genuinely significant chunk of a new parent's budget, at exactly the point in life when budgets are already stretched thinnest. Money spent on brand loyalty, not on anything a baby has ever noticed the difference on. And that's the uncomfortable truth sitting on Lidl's shelves right now. 15 premium brands, 15 price tags people have been paying without question, and 15 times the evidence says they didn't have to. 15 brands built entire reputations on the assumption nobody would ever run this comparison side by side. Well, now it's been run 15 times over, and 15 times the premium didn't hold up. Add it all up across a single year of shopping: the crisps, the nuts, the laundry, the cheese, the veg, the butter, the eggs, the chocolate, the skincare, the salmon and the nappies, and the total gap between the Lidl trolley and the premium trolley stops looking like small change. It starts looking like a holiday, a car repair fund, or a decent dent in a family's monthly bills, sitting unclaimed on the shelf because nobody ran the comparison. So next time someone tells you own brand isn't the same, you'll know exactly which packet to hand them to prove it. If this changed what's going in your trolley next week, hit subscribe, because the premium aisle has a lot more to answer for, and we're not done exposing it.